Hi guys, and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be doing another character file review, this time of Rodney Trotter from Only Fools and Horses. Now, Only Fools and Horses is a long-running comedy series which ran from 1981 all the way to 2003, and it's a really great comedy. If you haven't seen Only Fools and Horses, please do check it out, because it is a really enjoyable program, and I guarantee you guys will love it. So I'm going to be talking about the character of Rodney Trotter. I did a video many months ago now of Del, from Derek Trotter from Only Fools and Horses. So if you'd like to check that on the channel, that's somewhere. Was originally planning to do this Rodney Trotter video at that time, but unfortunately I couldn't due to I was busy in various other reasons. But I'm going to be making this video today about Rodney Trotter. Now, Rodney is one of those characters who he's the foil to Del. He's always, there with him. He's normally, maybe the butt of the joke, sort of thing. Rodney is sort of like, he's a bit of a goon, a bit of a wally. Yeah, and he's just like one of those characters there. But Del always, I don't know how to describe it. Del is always a bit, not particularly very nice to Rodney. It makes him do things that he doesn't want to do. He, makes him, do various other things. I'm making him wear ski masks and God knows what else. Trotter crash turbans and various other random stuff that Del makes him do. But there are loads of episodes in Only Fools and Horses that I really enjoy and focus on Rodney particularly. Now, the big story with Rodney Trotter's character is that he is not related to most of the Trotters. I mean, he's related to Del, and Del is his half brother, which is revealed in the final episode, Sleepless and Peckham. But yeah, so Rodney isn't, fully related to the Trotters. He's not related to Grandad or Uncle Albert, but you can see how much they're a family connection. I mean, you can see that he's very different to the other characters. Rodney's a more sensitive character, and Del is sensitive as well, but in a very different way, which I find interesting. But Rodney as a character, I think the big storyline with his dad, his dad isn't Reg Trotter, it's someone else, and I always thought that was an interesting route that the show went in, because in the first episode this is mentioned, I think it's thicker than water, which is when Del and Rodney's dad appears, Reg Trotter, and then you start to think, and then they do blood tests, and then it's like, maybe he's not, and then they do a joke about Del being the one who isn't actually his son, when actually it was sort of Rodney, and they sort of make a joke because he's so much more taller than them. Nicholas Indas is like 6'2", and they're all a lot shorter than that, so that's always something that they mentioned in the series. In the episode A Frog's Legacy is even more, we get even more context about who's Rodney's dad, sort of thing, where it could be, and he was friends with their mum, and various other things like that. They get nodded, and then Uncle Albert even says, oh yeah, he looks a bit like you, and stuff like that. So really interesting storyline, and the gold, where the Trotter brothers can get the gold and everything. I'd like to do a review of A Frog's Legacy, because that's a very good episode, and I really thoroughly enjoyed that. But yeah, there are other episodes of Only Fools and Horses that I think really show Rodney's character. The episode which I absolutely love is The Unlucky Winner Is, which is basically Rodney's episode. Basically, Rodney gets involved in the Groovy Gang, and he has to wear a badge, and it's the most funniest episode, because Del enters Rodney in for a competition, which is like in a 14-year-old age category, as part of like a cornflakes competition. They used to win a free holiday, and Rodney thinks, oh, I've won a holiday, I'm going to go with Cassandra. No, Del comes along as well, and they make him go into the Groovy Gang, and he is involved in that, and he has to do skateboarding, breakdancing competitions, and various other things. And it's just a really funny episode, so I really recommend you check that episode out. It is a very groovy episode. I actually do have the Groovy Gang badge, so if you can see it there. Yeah, cool little thing anyway. Yeah, and I really enjoyed that episode, and I think it's amazing, showing how Del always puts himself first before Rodney, I feel like, a lot of the time, because it's like he just uses Rodney a fair bit, and Rodney's always he ends up with a short straw, I think, a lot of the time. But you really do see that Del and Rodney, they really do care for each other, even despite the fact that they sometimes argue a lot in a lot of episodes. You can see that they really do, like, they are brothers, and they really do care for each other, which I think's a really cool thing in the series, that it's more, Only Fools and Horses is one of those things. It's a comedy, but there's dramatic elements in there that I find really, they're hard hitting, and they do really well. There's Rodney and his wedding. Obviously, the middle name, his name is Charlton, Rodney Charlton Trotter, because he's named after Charlton Athletic, the football club. So that's an interesting little thing. Rodney, unfortunately, as like a child, he grew up, being raised by his brother and his granddad and his nan. Unfortunately, because their mum died very young, and that's always been a big theme. Has been like, we never saw, their mum, apart from in Rocking Ships, obviously. But we never saw their mum, and you could see the impact that she had on the thing, on Rodney, and how everyone else remembers her so much, and he doesn't, because he was about 5 years old or something when she died. In Only Fools and Horses, there is, I know I'll get into the nitty gritty of this, but there is a little bit of an inconsistency how old Rodney is. I mean, some episodes he's born in 1960, some episodes he's born in 1958. It doesn't, sometimes 1962. It doesn't really matter that much, but I just thought I might mention it because it pops up quite a fair bit throughout the series. But yeah, Del and Rodney have a 13-year age gap, which is quite a big age gap. I've got siblings, but then they're not as big as an age gap as that. But yeah, but Rodney, as a character, I do love the wedding episode, Little Problems, where you can see that Rodney is like so in love with Cassandra, and they get married and everything. But Del, you can really see how it affects him, which I find was really interesting. That that it affects him so much, that he's going to leave, and then when he comes back, it's sort of a bit underwhelming because that happened. You know what I mean? But Rodney also had quite a few friends in the series. These being Mickey Pierce, being his main friend. Also, Jevon and Chris, who are all sort of his friends. But Rodney goes out with a few different women and stuff like that throughout the series as well. But Cassandra is the one who stayed and he was with. But there is another character called Vicky that Rodney is very close with in the Royal Flush. The Royal Flush is an episode I enjoy, but a lot of people don't, because it's not exactly, he doesn't show Del in a very good light, that episode. But that episode I enjoy because you can see that Rodney, he really cares for Vicky, and they have that sort of bond with each other, and they really like each other. But unfortunately, Del ruins it, and Del, mentioned in the episode, he's ruined a lot of stuff for Rodney. He's like ruined opportunities when he wanted to be in the army or cadets, and when he wanted to be be in a band, that was ruined by Del. So there's lots of things that haven't gone exactly to Rodney's way because Del said, no, you do this, sort of thing. He rules his life. And what I find really sad is that he could have been happy with Victoria. He could have had something really good with her, but Del ruined it just in a completely ruined way. They still could have been friends and everything like that, but he ruined it, and I think that was that's not the. It's a good episode, but doesn't show Del in the best way. But yeah, I think that Rodney as a character is a very strong character. Nicholas Lyndhurst does an absolutely amazing job, because he just does. He's really great at it. And Rodney, throughout the series, I mean, he's always been the intelligent one. He studies for like a diploma in like computer science. I feel like that's what you'd say. Anyway, so he studies for that and everything like that throughout the series. Particularly series 6, he wants to build his profile. He wants to make himself like a businessman. He gets a job with Cassandra's dad at the end of it. And then series 7, and then in series 7, Rodney's character sort of goes downhill. I feel like, because he was up there, and then suddenly he was stripped from his wife, his job, and then he's back working for Del, and everything like that. And it all just goes a bit pear-shaped for him, if I'm completely honest. But Rodney does bounce back. He does get back with Cassandra, and he does make amends with them. But he still works for Del, and that works out until the final episode, when they do become millionaires, and they have a nice flat. Rodney has a lovely flat, and then suddenly, well, a couple of years later, they lose it all, and suddenly they're back in Nelson Mandela House. But yeah, I think like Rodney as a character though, he is the foil to Del, which I find funny because Rodney is forced to do all manner of nonsense he's got to do. He's got to like deliver clothes, deliver all sorts of other stuff, selling sun hats in the rain, or just loads and loads of things that Rodney does throughout the series, and I think he's just an incredible character, really. Rodney is obviously known as the plonker of television because that's Del always used to refer to him as a plonker, and I always really enjoyed the relationship between Grandad and Rodney as well, because they've got like a nice little relationship, and Uncle Albert, he sort of just takes the mick out of him, really. But him and Grandad, I feel like they have a good relationship, but then sometimes they're at each other's throats. Because there's a scene where Rodney goes into business with Mickey Pierce, and he said, then Grandad said, "Oh, how are you going to start with a Wendy house?" Sort of thing, because they don't, obviously, they have a lot of money, and it's just great. But I think some of the other things that we can show about Del's character, through Rodney as well, is that Del will always, stick up for Rodney, even in times when, like times off, when he has a relationship with an older woman, and her husband comes out of prison, and the first thing he wants to do is attack Rodney because he found out he's had an affair with his wife, basically. And Del takes that blame, and he gets beaten up. And then turns out Rodney, he's just gone and dated some person of a similar age to him. So it's just an interesting little story. But I do really love Only Fools and Horses, and I think Nicholas Lyndhurst is a very strong actor, and him and David Jason, the way they bounce off each other and the way the story flows and everything in most of the episodes is just superb, and I think it's an amazing sitcom and probably one of the best sitcoms ever made. But Rodney Trotter as a character definitely stands up there in some of the great comedy characters. It's just from comedy history of British television, really. Anything else I can talk about Rodney? Well, Rodney, he has always been and always will be the smart one of the group. He's like smart but thick at the same time because he's intelligent, like mentally intelligent, but then he's also a bit dumb in certain aspects. Even though, like in business sense, Del tries to con Trigger into buying the suitcases in the first episode by saying, "Oh, they're that much," and then Rodney gets a calculator and says, "No, they're actually that much." So basically, he was trying to get it for a cheaper price, and Rodney ruined it. Basically, something else I should mention: Trigger. Rodney's also known as Dave. I don't know why. Trigger just calls him Dave. He's like, "All right, Dave." Yeah, it's just like I don't know. Yeah, it's random. But yeah, I just think Rodney as a character is brilliant, and yeah, that's all I've got to say, really. Hope you all enjoyed my character file review of Rodney Trotter, Rodney Charlton Trotter, as he's also known. But yeah, so that's kind of all I've got to say about Rodney. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and yeah, are you having fun? Groovy. See you next time.